Okay, Boker Tov, everybody. Shalom Aleichem, Chanukah Sameach. We're going to start in a minute. We'll be on page 38. We're late into chapter. Thank you. We're late in 1 second. Late in chapter 6, chapter Parak Vav. We're starting at the words where it says V'hinei anachnu ro'im. So that's V'hinei anachnu ro'im, Parak Vav. And today's book, as always, is L'zchut Ilui Nishama Avigdor Chai Avram Ben Mertzi Rachalea and Neshama Shevan Aliyah. And thank you all for being here, both on Zoom and in person. I know it's Hanukkah, and I know people have plans, and especially if people are on a bit of a chofesh from whatever they may be doing. But I am of the mind, I've said this in the Tanya class, I said this in the Mesilat Yesharim class now, and I say it in my Navi class, that dafka during Hanukkah, I don't care if even one person just shows up, or I'm just talking to myself, or sometimes I feel like in some parts of my life, we learn, because that's exactly what they wanted us to stop doing. So the best revenge is learning Torah. Okay, so in Parak Vav, we've been talking about the topic of Zvizut, and we're leaving that untranslated. Again, because the word alacrity and others just doesn't cut it. And he's talking about one of the biggest hindrances to getting motivated to do the mitzvah is natural tendency to be lazy. He talks about kvedut, just heaviness. I prefer sitting on the couch. I prefer, watching a movie. I prefer whatever it might be, and not having to get up and do something. And he's going to continue on that theme now. We'll see how true to life his insight really is for many people. We see with our very own eyes. Kama v'chama pe'amim, many times. Look, we know, like he says many times, I've said many times, we know what we have to do. And it's also been verified to him, meaning it's not like, well, I think I'm supposed to do this. No, he knows for a fact, it's verified, it's true. What is it that he needs to do to save his life? And what is it that he has a requirement to do from the perspective of serving Hashem? Nevertheless, he still puts it aside. Going back to the mashal he gave us at the beginning of the book, 2 days ago, I went to my dear friend, Dr. Ruvain Singer, dentist, and because I was having something with a tooth, it's an ongoing problem. Took a picture, and boom, I have a small infection. Okay, no big deal, wasn't causing me any problems. Chas v'shalom, wasn't making me have to be with a fever. I wasn't have to lie down, but I have a little infection. Fine. So I went to the store, to the pharmacy, and I got my Augmentin, the size of horse pills, Baruch Hashem. Now, I could bring them home. I did my due diligence. I went to the store, I bought them, I brought them home. I could leave them on the table. I know I need to take them. I know it's going to make my infection go away, Bezrat Hashem. Or I could just leave them, or I could take them. So I know I have to take them. So it sounds silly to say I bought them and I put them on the table and I didn't take them because who needs to open the package? And you got to take it out of the blister pack. Then you got to find a place to put the recycling, and then you got to put your mouth, and where's the water? All these different. So that sounds ridiculous. He says that we see with our own eyes, though, when it comes to service of Hashem, it's the same thing in many cases. It's not because a person doesn't know or recognize that they have a requirement to do the mitzvah, not for any other reason, ella rather that the person's, the weightiness of their laziness just gets stronger and stronger and overcomes them. Now, this is this laundry list of things he says that people say to themselves. You know what? I know I have to go to the shir. I know I have to go and do this mitzvah, but let me just have a little nash first. You know what? Let me just rest. I'll take a little, you know what schnatz is? It's a schnatz haraim. It's like a nap. Take a little nap. Oh, kashelai, let's say, you know, it's hard to get. You got to find the key to lock up, and you got to go up the stairs. Oh, pashatati et kutanti. I already took off my clothes. That's a pasuk in Shir Hashirim. We know it says that it says pashatati et kutanti echacha tanfem. I already took off my clothes. I already took off my clothes. I'm in bed already. You know what? I'm going to get dressed again. I'm going to get my feet dirty. My feet are already clean. I'm going to get on the dirty floor. Like, what am I going to do? Now, parenthetically, this one is this one could be, I could see happening not saying those exact words, but person forgot to say Marv. It happens. You get into bed, you're lying in bed and say, I didn't daven. I forgot. Now, it's not like it's 2 in the morning and like you can't even keep your eyes open. It's a normal early evening, but you went to bed early. Forgot to daven Marv. I got to get out of bed. I got to put clothes on. Forget it. So this does happen. Says, I already took off my clothes, I'm redressed to do this mitzvah. It's so hot outside. I can't go to shul. It's so cold. Or gishamim, or it's pouring rain. All these things. And all these different excuses and claims that the lazy people's mouths are filled with them. I sent a pasuk on the group just before class. And if you don't have it in front of you, it's fine. I'm just going to read it to you. Pasuk in Tehillim says as follows. Asher yachdav namtik sod, bevet Elokim nahalech beragesh. To the house of God, we will go with feeling, with gusto. Right. Now, there is a beautiful not play on words, but an idea I heard. I don't remember. I went looking just before the class was said. I couldn't find it, but I'll try to remember to look for it. That the last word, you go to the house of God, beregesh, resh, gimel, shin, ruach, geshem, shemesh. Doesn't make a difference what the weather is. Meaning it's so windy out, it's so hot out, it's pouring rain. Doesn't make a difference, right? If the lahavdil, if the mail, what do they call them, letter carriers, can't call them mailmen anymore. The letter carriers in the United States can go, no matter what, we can get to daven, we can go to do the mitzvah, whatever it might be, right? Sorry, I skipped the line. Uvein kach, in the meantime, while they're making all these excuses, HaTorah munachat, the Torah sits off to the side, v'ha'avodah mevutelet, and the work is, I don't know how you translate it. Canceled, okay. V'adam ozev et boro, and the person leaves his creator.
But here, avodah
does not mean work. No, it's avodat Hashem. Avodat Hashem, correct. We have to understand that what he's trying to tell us here is something that is part of our human nature. Part of our human nature is to want to make things a little easier for ourselves. It's true. It really is. Why would I want to push myself? Now, some people are definitely motivated. This is not all people. I'm sure Joel wakes up every day, can't wait to do the first mitzvah possible a day. And when he goes to sleep, can't wait to wake up to do a mitzvah. I'm sure,
I wish I was that sure.
I am. I have tremendous confidence in you and in all of us. Well, all of you, not me. But the truth of the matter is that the average person doesn't necessarily want to push themselves. So he's saying it's one thing about pushing yourself, and it's another thing just to kind of wake up and smell the fresh brewed coffee, because you need to understand that you're standing, as I said last week, in your own way. Umasha Shlomo Omer is what Shlomo HaMelech said in Kohelet, Ba'atzaltayim yimach ha'mekareh, u'v'shiflut yadayim yidlof habayit. So literally means that the roof is going to sink in because of laziness, and with a little bit of time wasting, the house is going to get like dripped on and wet. What does that mean, though? Okay. Sometimes, let's just take the house as an example, because this is what he uses. You see a little drop of a little bit of moisture in a wall, a little bit. I know that in these buildings that were built in the last 12 years, we've never had any retivut problems. There's never been a problem with pipes. That's called sarcasm. The first 4 buildings were the worst, unfortunately. Thank God ours was not too bad. Not too bad, except for upstairs. And okay, so you see a little too, okay, it's a couple drops. Or you turn on the electricity, turn on the lights, and there's a little flicker for a couple minutes once in a while. Or you turn on the water in your sink and it kind of hesitates and it squirts out, and then there's a little water pressure. It's okay, it's fine. It's a little teeny tear in the clothes. It's okay, no one's going to even notice that little bit. And before you know it, that little bit of retivut becomes a massive problem. The sink becomes a problem, and there's an overflow, and now you have a big tear in your clothing because you didn't bother fixing that little bit of a tear. And the Kohelet is, Shlomo HaMelech is telling us, in Kohelet is exactly that. That when you see this little thing, this one little thing, and you don't take action, it becomes a big thing. So when not taking action, when we have the opportunity to do something, i.e. a mitzvah, it becomes a bigger problem, a bigger issue. Now, I mentioned last week your homework, and I actually just remembered it now because of Kohelet, mentioning Kohelet. And the question was, why is it that Shlomo, who wrote 3 Svarim, he wrote Shir Shirim, Mishlei, and Kohelet, starts off as referring to himself as Ben David in Kohelet and in Mishlei, but in Shir Shirim he calls himself, it says Shir Shirim Asher Li Shlomo. So if anyone happens to have had an answer, I'd be happy to hear. The extra points on the final. And otherwise, I'm happy to share the answer that I heard. Doesn't mean it's the only answer. Anybody? Yes?
When I looked up in Sanshino, because I thought that would be the easiest.
Yeah.
Because I'm lazy.
No, you're not.
They mentioned that they were all written at different portions of the life of
Correct.
Shlomo. But I have the feeling that he was trying to say to us, with this, I'm no longer David's son only.
Right.
I'm also
my own person.
Hashem, and I'm my own person. I'm me. I'm Shlomo.
Okay, good. So let me first repeat what Judy said, that she had looked up something in Sensino, and it said they're written different stages of his life. And Judy believes that it is the idea that David is coming to the point where he says, I'm not only, Shlomo is not only at the point that he's the child of David, but he's also become his own person. Excellent. I like that. Any other ideas, anybody? We have a huge crowd here today. For those of you on Zoom, you can't see, but we have a humongous crowd. Baruch Hashem. That's good. It's fine. Baruch Hashem. So here's an answer that I heard. Again, when it comes to Torah, I almost will never say the answer. I've told you that many, many times because there's no such thing. An answer. What is the purpose of Kohelet and what is the purpose of Mishlei? It's to teach us. It's to teach us how to serve Hashem. And the Gemara even tells us that originally, that when they were deciding, the Chachamim were deciding on the canon, closing the C-A-N-O-N, the canon of Tanakh, what would actually be considered a book of Tanakh and what wouldn't. Bikshu lignos Sefer Kohelet. They wanted to bury Sefer Kohelet because it was all negative. It was all Havel Habalim Amer Kohelet Akol Havel. It's terrible. Blah, 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 until the second to last, the penultimate pasuk. This is what saved it. Sof davar kol nishma v'chulei v'chulei. That basically it says, I'll say it. Sof davar kol nishma et Elokim yirav et mitzotav shmor ki zeh kol adam. Bottom line, he says, is we got to serve Hashem. That's what we're here for on this earth. My word's not his exact translation. So it's to teach us. It's to how to live our lives. How to, and with Mishlei, as the word says, it's Proverbs, Mishalim, one thing after another, and to teach us. He's teaching us, all of us. When it comes to Shir HaShirim is a love story. It's a story of love between every individual Jew and Hashem. How I see myself in my relationship to Hashem. That's a very personal. I'm not there to teach you how to love. You have to find your path in love to Hashem. But when it comes to my love of Hashem, I have my way. I can use Shir HaShirim as a guide. Shlomo HaMelech is sharing with us his path to Hashem and the love between him and Hashem. And because it's a very personal story, he becomes Shlomo and he's not Ben David. Tov. Next he says, V'ulam. But, however, if you were to ask the lazy person, and he said, like, why? I don't understand. Why aren't you doing such and such? He will come with all kinds of quotations from Chazal. Quote you all kinds of psukim, and give you all kinds of claims based on his logic. All of these things, these psukim he quotes and the rabbis he's quoting, will teach him based on his warped sense of knowledge and logic. To make life easier for him, and to allow him to remain in his passive, very lazy way of life. What is he saying? He's saying, Aleph, the guy knows what he's supposed to do. Bet, he doesn't do it because he's lazy. And Gimel, he justifies it with all kinds of halachot. Well, because if I go outside, I might get a cold. And if I get a cold, I might be able to daven tomorrow in the shul. So it's better if I stay in. By the way, sometimes it is legitimate, obviously, but more often than not, you find that a person who makes quote unquote excuses for not doing a mitzvah, that they also will try to be moreh heter. Moreh heter means to teach them a permissibility of the action. That, no, sure, it's fine. I'll give you a good example. I will without the name of the place. Andy and I yesterday went to Yerushalayim, and we did something. I've been here for many years, Baruch Hashem, not that many, for 12 years plus. And before we came on Aliyah, I brought groups here. I was here like 20 times before we made Aliyah, and in the few years before we made Aliyah. And with the groups and with ourselves, we never ever, Andy and I, went to Yar Yerushalayim, to the forest, the Jerusalem forest. Never went. I mean, it's right in our backyard. So finally we went, and it was very nice. And afterwards, there was a place that we wanted to go to have something to eat. We're not big restaurant people, but it was a specific item we wanted to get from a particular vendor that we had read about or heard about. And we got there and start to get ready to order this one item we went for. And I said, wait a minute. She says, there's no tu'udah here. Doesn't have a tu'udah. So I said, but yesh lachem tu'udah? No, we don't have a tu'udah, but everything, at first, I'm not open on Shabbat. We close early Friday. Everything here is parv. There's nothing. I said, okay, thank you very much. No, but everything they order for me for Osher Ad. I sell to, thank you very much. Now, could I have said to him, I told him, if I'd been in your house, okay, maybe I'd eat it in your house, but not in a commercial business where you have what to gain and what to lose. And I didn't go into exact depth of that. Now, I could have justified. I said, look, it's all parv. What could he possibly have done here that's not going to be okay? I don't know. So I could have justified and found all kinds of heterim. He said, oh, there's this particular sif in Shulchan Aruch that I know because it's not milchik, it's not sorry. You know what? We walked away. Would I have been eating treif? I'm sure not. For sure not. But at the same time, that doesn't mean I'm a tzaddik. It just means that for once I did one thing I think that'd be the right way to do it. But he says, if you ask these people, that not only they're going to say, yeah, I know I should do it, but they're also justifying why they're not doing whatever it is that they're doing or not doing. They don't even realize that these claims and these ideas and these excuses are being born from their that are being born of their shikul hadat, their own. I say shikul hadat in English. Way they're coming up to consideration. Okay.
Consideration.
Good. Thank you. At least I have a walking Google Translate. Thank you. Where are they coming from? They're coming from the source of all that is just their laziness. It's overcoming them. Mata da'ato, it twists their knowledge, their intellect. And they won't listen to people who have a little bit more knowledge than them, who might be telling them what to do or that they're doing something wrong. No, they know better. I have said many times, and it's not an original idea, that if you think about someone who plans a crime, they're going to break into a bank, they're going to steal, they're going to embezzle from their business, but whatever it might be. And sometimes it's extremely clever and the amount of things you have to do and hoops to jump to, if they would use just part of that knowledge for good and not evil, how much better a place that they could be and what they could gain and what the world could gain from that. And sometimes these people are really brilliant. It's amazing. And I don't know. So I said the same thing here. Just use that same power of understanding induction for pasuk and understand. Humash Shlomo Tzovech, that's what Shlomo Melech screams about and says in Mishlei. Chacham atzel be'einav mishivei ta'am. That a person who's lazy is, in his own eyes, is wiser than seven chachamim. It's an expression. It means oh, you think you know what you're talking about? Well, because you went to yeshiva. Well, because you listened to a class online. I know better. You may not say it out loud, but you're going to feel that way sometimes. Like, I just know better than you. Because his laziness doesn't even leave a speck of opening here for him to listen to someone who's trying to tell him he's doing something wrong. He'll think that everybody, they're the fools. He's the only wise person. So I'll tell you a story that I heard a number of years ago from Rabbi Yisachar friend, Shlita, was quoting a story directly from the mouth of Rav Pam Zatzal, who was he was Rosh Hashiva at Torah V'das in New York. Unfortunately, I came to know Rav Pam only at the later part of his life. I say that, I don't mean to know him personally. I'm saying just to learn from his stuff and his words and his sefer is one particular one. He's an amazing individual and a very sweet, kind, gentle soul. You could see it in the way he spoke to you. He talked, the way he gave shiurim, the way he related to people, and he understood the human psyche. And we're talking about here about, excuses, right? I don't have time for this. I can't do this. So he tells a story. He told many stories. The one that comes to mind is there's a man who came to him who was learning in Kohelet, married with a couple kids. And he came to Rav Pam and he said, I have a complaint. He said, I don't have any time to learn Mishnayos. He wouldn't have said Mishnayot. I don't have any time to learn Mishnayos. So Rosh Hashiva sits him down and says, let's talk. He says, tell me, what's your Seder like? What do you do in your learning day? He says, well, I start with Halach in the morning, and then we have Seder and Gemara. Then I go home, take care of the kids, and I come say the second Seder of Gemara, third Seder of Musar, and then we have Gemara. And by the time I finish Marav, it's 10:30 at night. Fine, very good. So he says, so tell me, when do you learn Mishnah? He said, I just told you, I don't have any time. He said, let me ask you another question. You didn't come here about Mishnah. Why are you really here? He says, I'll tell you the truth. What I'm really here about is I have a complaint. I love my wife, but she is always late. I want to go somewhere. I want to leave at 6 o'clock. It's 6:10, it's 6:20, it's 6:30. I can't get out of the house on time. I'm always waiting for her. He says, let's go back. Tell me again what your schedule is today. You sound very busy. Yeah, I learned this. I learned Gemara. He said, so why don't you learn Mishnah? He says, I just told you. I just have a crazy day. I'm always busy with learning something else. I can never make time for Mishnah. He says, you know what? While you're sitting waiting for your wife, learn Mishnah. He said the guy came to him a year later. He was finished all of Shisha Sitra Mishnah just in the time while he was waiting. True story. True story. So we make up these things that, I don't have the time for this. I don't have the time for that. When am I going to get to this? When am I going to get to? I was just mentioning to my wife this morning that with many of the horrible things that came out of Corona, there's some very positive things that have come out of it. This kind of a shiur, by the way, but it could be on Zoom, people joining on Zoom. Before, you taught in person and people came, they came. They didn't. Teaching a class in Tanya now, I got people in the United States, I got people in Israel, and other couple countries. It's amazing. You never would have had that before as a direct result of Corona. Personally, I know what I have finished something today and something a few months ago that I started because of Corona. It's okay, great. So when we say we don't have the time, and there also is a truism that you have something to do, you have something you need to give to someone, give it to someone who's busy, because someone who's busy will always find the time. A person who has a lot of time on their hands doesn't seem to be able to find the time to do something. On the flip side, I once had a boss many, many years ago when I was in the business world. It was a factory environment, a pretty large place. He once told me, he said, if you have nothing to do, walk around fast. People think you're very busy. So I've used that a couple of times in my life, but try not to. Next paragraph. V'hinei. Teda, you should know. This is a tried and true method when it comes to the working at prishut. We're not going to loosely translate that word right now as asceticism. I don't know what your English translates that as. Separating, ascetics. But right now basically means becoming a better Jew. Let's just leave it at that because we'll talk about that much later in the book. Shekol kula tzricha bedika. Anytime you want to be makel, you want to be a little bit more lenient, you need to check that you're doing the right thing. You have to check into it. Why? It may in fact be legitimate. However, why are you looking to be mako? Why are you looking to do it on a little bit lesser intensity? It's a particular mitzvah, whatever it might be. It may only be because your Yetzer Hara is trying to trick you. And therefore, you have to really intensely look at this if it's really the right thing to do. And after that, if you really see it is the right thing, then it's okay. He's not telling you don't be mako. He's not saying you can be lenient, you shouldn't be lenient in areas of halacha. No way, definitely not. But he is saying that if you are trying to be mako in something, just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons and not because it's coming out of laziness. I want to mention just one thing, and I know I've mentioned this before, but it really fits in here because it's important to note, because this topic comes up somewhat frequently. And that's the topic of what's called Chalav Yisrael. Chalav Yisrael basically is, one of my students calls it Jew milk. It's hard for me to get that out of my head now once he started calling it that. Chalav Yisrael basically means milk that was milked by Jews, it was processed by Jews, packaged by Jews, and then Jews are involved basically in the entire processing. Chalav Nochri is milk that is either milked by non-Jews, processed by non-Jews, etc. And the original gzeira of not drinking Chalav Nochri or non-Chalav Yisrael was due to the fact that it was Shema Ye'arav bo davar tameh. Maybe they'll mix in some non-kosher milk or milk from non-kosher animals. And therefore, majority of those who drink milk that is not Chalav Yisrael will rely on one of the more famous shuvas of Rav Moshe Feinstein Zatzal, which was that whenever you're in a country such as the United States, and now the EU and other countries, where there is pikuach, there is supervision by a governmental body, that a company could lose its license for packaging by doing something like that, then you're allowed to rely on that, and you can drink milk that does not have a hechsher, or at least it's not Chalav Yisrael. China, you can't drink the milk. Many countries, you cannot drink the milk. You have to bring Chalav Amid, the stuff you can buy and keep on a shelf. Okay, so many people feel that Chalav Yisrael is a chumrah. It's not. Chalav Yisrael is the halacha. It says in the Shulchan Aruch you have to drink Chalav Yisrael. But we rely on a kula. We rely on that which Rav Moshe Feinstein and others have said, is to drink something that is Chalav Nochri because X, Y, and Z. So we also have to understand when we use terminology, chumrah, kula, halacha, we have to also be a little bit careful how we use those terms to make sure we're talking about that the right way. Again, I don't want to say that a person should never try to find an easier way to do something or a different way if it's more makel in their lives, but it can't be because of a wrong reason. It has to be for a proper reason. But again, once it's within the area of halacha, it's perfectly legitimate. Klalo shel davar, general rule. Chizuk gadol tzarich adam leitchazek ulitkaber bezrizut lasot mitzvah. A person really requires a lot of special chizuk, and in order to overcome this laziness, in order to do a mitzvah bizrizut. How? In order to throw off this heaviness, this laziness that prevents him from doing something. Do you have a parentheses in your book now? Mm-hmm. Yes, where it says v'ishtamesh. Mm-hmm. Does anyone have that particular printing? Mm-hmm. I do. You do? Okay, so I'm going to come back to that when I finish the paragraph. And actually the malachim, the angels, have been praised with this particular character trait. It says about them, and it says in Yechezkel, it's giving us a metaphorical insight into the actions that the malachim do quickly and run and do to the will of Hashem. Look, we're humans. We're not angels. Therefore, it's impossible to be like a malach and to be as strong and overcome the Yetzer. They don't have a Yetzer Hara to overcome. But certainly, the closer you can get to that, the better off you'll be. David HaMelech would praise his chelek in this world and say, I acted quickly and I didn't delay to do your mitzvot. Let's go back to that parentheses for a minute. He says there is one place where laziness will work to your benefit. You should use the character trait of laziness. When it comes to any inclination you may have for something, when it comes to illicit activity in life, which you may be driven by your nefesh habahamit, which is your animal soul, which we are exactly talking about starting next week. Bezrat Hashem and Tanya, that's exactly where we're going to be. What does that even mean? That the pleasure one may get out of the action, this activity is passing, min hadam, and after that action, he will be left with embarrassment in this world, and an onesh in the next world. What's he saying? The very same person who may say, I keep using shul as an example. I don't mean there's millions of other things. And by the way, it says in halacha, yishtadel hitpalel b'minyan. You should try to daven with a minyan. It doesn't say, but it's accepted that we like same thing with tzitzit. There's no. Never, I'm going to digress. That's going to take me too long. Never mind. Okay, just take my word for it. But I'm just going to use that as an example. The same guy who may say, I'm too lazy to get up and go to shul. He may not say, I'm too lazy to get up and see that girl I shouldn't be seeing. Whatever it might be. That's where you should be lazy. Use that laziness, he says, for the positive sometimes, because sometimes it will serve you well. I want to, instead of going on to the next paragraph, I'm going to give you 5 minutes of some idea about Hanukkah that I thought of many years ago. And it's an original idea that I have said a few times publicly. And I like saying it because I always wait to see if someone said, no, I heard that already. Not from me, but I've read it because I need to see. It's just so obvious to me that I can't believe I'm the first person on earth to think about this. And I've yet to find a source. And that's, by the way, it's not some pretend, what do you call it? Humility. It's just, it's too obvious to me. We know, it says in Masechet Shabbat, and all have learned this, that the word Hanukkah is made up of Chanukah. They rested on the 25th of the month. On the 25th of Kislev, the war was over, and Shalom Yisrael, literally. But you could also divide that word up another way. Chinuch Hashem. Chet, Nun, Vav, Kaf, and the letter Hey representing Hashem. And I believe that there's a message about chinuch, obvious, right in the halachot of Hanukkah, in 2 areas. One halacha says as follows: there's a machloket if hanacha osa mitzvah or hadlaka osa mitzvah. What does that mean? Let's assume for a moment this is the Chanukiah. It's a shtender. I know. Use your imagination. Let's say this is the Chanukiah, and I'm supposed to light it. Let's just say, for sake of argument, it's supposed to be right here. Whatever. So what do? I light it in the kitchen. I make the bracha, I light the kitchen, then I put it here. Did I do the mitzvah? So if the mitzvah is accomplished by hanacha, by placing it in the right place, then I did the mitzvah. But if it's hadlaka osa mitzvah, it means that when I light the Chanukiah, it has to be in the spot where it has to be. The halacha is hadlaka osa mitzvah. The halacha is that you have to have it in the spot when you light it that it's supposed to be in, and you can't just light it and then move it to that spot. So Aleph. There are 2 types of teachers. Oh, many types. There are 2 types of education. One is they feel, and I actually have one student who she's learning for Bagriyot, who teaches this way, this teacher of hers, and it's horrid. Here's the information. Boom. Here's some more pages. Boom. Here's some more pages. Boom. Read it. Now she just reads it to them. That's hanacha. They're putting down the information in front of them. They're not teaching them. They're just giving it to them and placing it in front of them. And there are other teachers who are lahadlik. They want to really enlighten the student. They want to make them catch a fire, so to speak, to learn on their own. Hadlaka osa mitzvah. You want chinuch? You can't just give information. I could just give you this book and say, here's Mesilat Yesharim, here's the English translation, just read it. You're going to get something out of it, there's no question. But when you do it in a format like this, when you have someone explaining some things, and then you ask questions, and there's interaction, hadlaka osa mitzvah. But how do you know you did it the right way? How do you know if the hadlaka worked? So in the opening pasuk of Parshat Behalotecha, it tells us, Behalotcha tanerot. Rashi says that when you cause the light to go out, what does it mean, Behalotcha? So it says, Ad sheteheh shalhevet olah me'eleha. When the Kohen would light the menorah in Beit HaMikdash, and by the way, when we light the Chanukiah, you don't move your hand away from the fire until the flame is already going. Not just, you move it away and then, oh, it didn't light, let's try it again. You have to see that the flame is going up. So it says, I believe, that when it comes to, if you know, did you do hadlaka sa mitzvah, as far as chinuch, when you see that this child, the student, somehow has been invigorated, now they're willing to do more on their own. That's one thing. And there's another thing. And that is, that says, kavta zakukla or kavta ino zakukla. What does that mean? If I light the Hanukkah lights and they burn out before the time, or I open the door and the wind blew them out, the question in halacha is, do I have to relight them or not? And do I use a bracha, make a bracha or not, if I have to? So halacha is, if you put enough oil in to last a half hour past sunset, or tzeta kochavim, or you lit a candle that was long enough to have theoretically burned that, you did the mitzvah. As soon as you lit, you're okay. You don't say. So if it blew out a minute later, you don't have to relight. Kafta inaza kukla. If it burned out, you're not required to go back and relight it, but you can and you should without a bracha. But if you didn't put enough oil, or you didn't have a long enough candle, zakukla, then you're still connected to it. Zakuk isn't connected to it. You're still connected to it. You still have to go back and light it, and you have to light with a bracha. And I think that's the same thing when it comes to education. Kavta, what happens? I have students. Not every single student is a model student, is a big Rosh Hashiva and a big tzaddikas. Things happen in life. So sometimes I feel like I didn't do my job. I didn't do my job as an educator. I didn't do my job as a teacher. But then I think about it, and I say, if I feel that I gave as a teacher, and the student even himself or herself would say that, no, I gave the right tools, but that's their choice. Kafta, if their flame of Torah, God forbid, went out a little bit, ein zakukla. I'm not responsible for that. That's their job to relight themselves, so to speak. But, which is a bit more of a burden, if I didn't put a right amount of effort and I didn't teach properly and they got turned off by it, God forbid, kafta, and they're like, whatever, they did have that, that went out, zakukla. Then I still have a responsibility to have that education continue to really help that individual. Tov, have a Hanukkah Sameach. I hope all is great during the rest of Hanukkah, and we'll see you, Bezrat Hashem. See you next week.
Tודה רבה. Hanukkah Sameach.
And to you too. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Hanukkah Sameach.
Hanukkah Sameach.